Hello again. Muriel and I are delighted that you have joined us in the next stage of our Do-It-Herself campaign. This week we're tackling plumbing, and we will do some of the more common things which you should be able to cope with easily. Remember, in doing these small jobs, you strike a blow for independence and save yourself substantial amounts of money, if not requiring to call out a tradesman.
At home, we tend to take the water supply for granted, but it can be a real problem if it gets out of control. Unfortunately, burst pipes, blocked drains and overflowing cisterns confront most of us sooner or later, and prevention is better than cure. Later on in the programme, we'll have a special guest to give you general hints, but first we thought we'd start with a really glamorous item, a blocked drain. Over to you, Anne.
No, you don't. Remember, we tossed earlier and you lost the toss, so you unblock the drain and I wash the coffee cups.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I'll get my own back one of these days. I'd better go and get started.
Okay.
Well, although we can be very careful, occasionally we do have a blocked drain in the sink. The main things which clog pipes are fat and fibrous material like hair and fluff. Don't pour waste fat down the drain. For one thing, hot fat and cold water is a lethal mixture, and hot fat can melt modern plastic piping. If it happens to be cold, it's still likely that it'll congeal in the pipe and block up the drain. So please don't ask for trouble by pouring waste fat down. Our students once blocked all the street drains by doing this, so you could be in a lot of trouble. If you have greasy washing up, use lots of water and detergent. And a good tip is to place a few washing soda crystals over the grid in the sink and then pour through a kettle full of boiling water. This will help to clear the drain. By the way, don't wait for the drain to block before you try this. Do it regularly. Question I'm often asked is whether you should put tea leaves down the drain. Well, I've got it on the best authority that they won't do any harm. They actually have acid in them, which will help to keep the pipe clear, but you must pour in plenty of water at the same time. Now, the bathroom drains tend to get choked with hair, especially if you've got long hair like mine, and it's not the pleasantest of jobs fishing that out. This is a useful little gadget that you can put in the sink to prevent the hair from going down the drain. Possibly you've seen it in the hairdressers. It's got a little clip on the bottom there, and you just place it over the grid in the sink. And that stops the hair going down. So it's worth its very, very small cost. However, you may find that the worst has happened and the water is just not going away. And that's what's happened to me here. The first thing you can try is using a simple plunger. A device like this. It's a rubber suction cup, and you place it over the grid in the sink, and it seals itself on by suction. Then you form really a sort of plug of water when you press, and with any luck, this might clear the drain. You really would need to plug this up as well, but no, I'm having no luck here at all. I've still got water in it, so there's no hope for it. You've got to get down to tackling something just a little bit more complicated. Now, before you start, you need to arm yourself with 2 buckets. This is terribly important. You need 2 buckets, and you'll need something also to clear the drain. I've got a piece of curtain wire here, and in case that doesn't do the trick, something like the handle of a wooden spoon might be helpful. So it's down on your knees to see what goes on underneath the sink. This is a modern trap, and it's called a P-trap for some unaccountable reason. And in a minute or two, I'm going to see if I can get this cleared. But you may have another kind of trap, so we'll have a look at these first. This is an older type of trap, an S-trap, which you may have in an older house. And it's metal, and it's got a little metal cap on it here. And you can get this off by using a screwdriver just to start it off, to loosen it, and then screwing off the cap. This, of course, you would be doing underneath here. Then, when you've got it, that would be its position under the sink, you've then got to take your flexible wire or whatever and poke all the gunge and goo out of here so that you get it cleared. And then, of course, you replace the cap. This is about the most modern one, and quite a lot of the newer houses have these. It's quite a simple affair. All you've got to do is unscrew this trap part underneath, and there you are. And you either clear the bit here or empty whatever is causing the trouble out of that part there and screw it up again. this one has got two parts to unscrew, so begin by putting the bucket underneath. And do have another bucket ready, because if you've got a sink full of water, I haven't, but if you had, you're going to need another bucket to move in pretty quickly. Loosen off these plastic sort of nut things. It's one, and they can be quite hard to screw. Oh, here's the mess beginning. Whoops. You're going to have a bit of floor washing to do by the time you've finished. And here's all the rubbish in the pipe. You can try with your plastic curtain wire. I've got this drain well and truly choked, as you can see. So the curtain wire may not be quite tough enough to move it. No, so I'm going to have to resort to something stronger. Here it comes. And it's lovely if this is all masses of greasy fat all over everything. There we are. Still one bit to come. And there it is. It's now clear all the way through. Now, if you've got gallons of water, of course, pouring out here, the one thing you must remember when you change the pail over is not to empty this one back down the sink, or you'll be there a long time. It's got to be emptied somewhere else. Now, replace your trap. And I must say, modern plumbing has made this job a wee bit simpler. Just be careful you get the screw on the right thread. Otherwise it'll get jammed halfway. And tighten it up just as tightly as you can screw it. Otherwise, when we let water into the drain, it'll all start leaking out again. Now, let's see if we've done the trick. You could, if you like, use the washing soda crystals and boiling water just to make sure you've got the thing really clean. There we are. I don't think we even need to tighten up the nuts underneath. I've solved my problem. Now, I think my friend has found herself a rather pleasanter job than the one she's landed me with. So perhaps we should have a look at what she's doing.
Yes, I was lucky this time in that I got a drier job. But this one can be a very warm job. I wonder if you have had a look at the lagging jacket on your hot water tank lately. You do have it lagged, of course. However, thicker and more efficient jackets are now available. And if yours has seen better days, it might be an idea to treat yourself to a new one. It will soon pay for itself in fuel saving, and it'll look smarter into the bargain. Remember, the whole purpose of a hot water cylinder is not to heat the airing cupboard, but to store the hot water from the tank. Well, this is our hot water cylinder. It's a copper cylinder. And as long as we can see it at this point, I'll show you. This is the valve which controls the flow of the hot water from the cylinder to the hot water tap. So that when we come to change your washer, if you are doing that on the hot water tap, this is where you would turn off the water. Right, to the lagging jacket. Lagging jackets can be bought for any size of tank. All you need to know is the height of the cylinder and the diameter. And if you tell the plumber that, or the shop where you go, you'll get a jacket to fit it. Now, this is the one that we're going to use today. It consists of 4 panels, each one pointed at the top, so that they will come and meet together at the pipe here. And the purpose is to cover totally the cylinder, so that none of the copper shows, therefore none of the heat can go out. Now, this is a job you can do yourself. It would take a little time, especially if your cylinder is inside a cupboard, as would be more normal. So I'm going to ask Muriel if she would come. Could you come, Muriel, give me a hand with this?
You didn't come and give me a hand with my mucky job.
I know, but I'm like that. So I'll give you 2 for your side, shall I?
Yes, I've got them.
And I'll keep 2 for here. And we pack them round about. I'll take these away. And they're all held together with a sort of shoelace. So if I tie it at the top, then we can proceed with packing the long bits round about. How's that now? That's fine. We can get this close up, so the only thing sticking out is the valve. Now, here's one of our laces. Can I give you that? Mm-hmm. Oops, that was a bit here.
I'll tie up the top again, because you've missed a loop on it, I think, Anne, if you fix this one.
Okay, right.
Change your end.
Thank you. Now, it's quite stretchy, this tape, so we can pull it.
It's a two-man job, this, I think.
Well, I think one could manage, but it would just take that bit longer, you know. And as time is of the essence for us at this moment, we'll make it a two-man job, Muriel. Here is another tape.
A two-girl job.
A two-girl job, we'll call it then. Right. Using the word girls very loosely. Fine. Now, I think this would make a rather nice jacket for you or me, wouldn't it?
Very fashionable.
Yes, very. Doesn't.
Still needing a wee bit of tightening on the top
Right.
there. I think that might need a bit more attention up on top.
I seem to be all thumbs just now. Here we are. Now, just pulled tightly as you can. Tuck it in here. Then just go around checking that the various bits of copper are not showing. And there your tank has a lovely warm coat for the winter. Thank you very much, Muriel. That's super. As you can see, it takes a very short time with two. It'll take a little longer with one, but still not an enormous job to tackle. The cost of this jacket is something about in the nature of £4. So I think you'll agree it will be well worth doing.
Well, we've shown you two items in the home which most people do know about. But as I said earlier, the water system is taken very much for granted. And we thought it might be an idea to know how it works. We're not trying to turn you all into plumbers, but I think you'll admit it's a bit late to start rushing around looking for where to turn the water off while it's spouting like a fountain out of a burst pipe and the family are taken to the boats. So to explain to us what happens, we've got as our guest today John McGibbon, Senior Lecturer in Plumbing at Cardonald College. Hello, John.
Good afternoon, Muriel.
Welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much.
Now, can you explain to us something about the mysteries of water in the home?
Yes, I think we'll start outside, Muriel, with the underground stopcock. Now, this is placed round about the pavement area, and it's about 2'6" under the ground, so that the frost can't get at
It's
it.
got a wee metal cover, is that right?
That's right, the Toby we call it in Scotland. And there is a water or Toby key. And the position of this cock just now is actually off. The key is running parallel with the road and it's off. It's only a quarter turn and we turn it on. So for our purpose, we'll give it a quarter turn back and we'll turn it off again. I always remember walking in Glasgow one day and a lady hanging out her window and her husband was down the street turning this off. And he kept doing this and she's shouting, it's half its on, it's half its on. So it's only a quarter turn and that's all.
And that's the
Right.
end of it.
Now, from there we move into another type of stopcock within the house, this screw-down stopcock. This is the common one. We turn it off. This will be placed maybe under the stair or under the sink cover.
More like an ordinary tap.
Yes, the same principle. Clockwise to turn it off, anti-clockwise to turn it back on again.
Not just a quarter turn for that
No,
one.
the whole way.
Now, I think you brought a diagram, John, to show us the rest of the house.
Yes, that's correct. We have a nice diagram here. And if we start with the underground stopcock, we follow, that's the one we were explaining with the water. We follow that into the house and we come up to the second stopcock. That was the screw down one that we were talking about just now. We follow that branch up, there's a branch for the sink, and then going right up into the attic, we get up to a stopcock, controlling the water to that cistern. And the cistern has a ball valve very similar to the ball valve within your cistern, within your WC system. From there the water flows past that stopcock down to the bathroom, so that stopcock at the top controls this bathroom here. Bath, basin, WC, and the WC, again having a cistern, has a control stopcock there in case something goes wrong. Better safe than sorry, Muriel. Moving across to the hot water cylinder here, that's, if just go down to the left-hand side of the cylinder, we see the stopcock Anne was talking about, down at the left-hand side there. That's right. And from the cylinder, we then follow these pipes down to the boiler. And below the boiler, we have what we call the sludge or draining off stopcock down there. That's often under the boiler or even under the floor near the boiler. Now, if we're turning off the water, we must also drain it down, because if we leave water in the pipes, they'll still burst. So the lesson is turn off and drain down.
And of course, anyone with an immersion heater wouldn't have the boiler set up, but they'd still have the drain off.
The system is almost the same.
Almost exactly the same.
That's right.
And of course, if you're going away on holiday, John, I suppose this is the time you want to turn off the water.
That's right. If you're going away for any period during the winter, turn off and drain down.
So the thing we need to do is go round the house and even have a diagram like that for your own house. Go round the house and get all the taps
and
labelled.
label all the stopcocks so you know which one is which.
Now, we mentioned burst pipes.
That's
what
right.
about them?
A lot of plumbers tell the customer copper pipes don't burst. Now, that tells its own story. There's a copper pipe that is burst, and you'll get 150 gallons of water an hour flowing through that burst pipe.
That's about 26 pailfuls.
Or
No, 75 pailfuls.
Or 6 baths, 25 gallons to a bath, 6 bathfuls of water through the house.
Well, it's an awful lot of water to have around the place, but I suppose there's nothing I could do about that. I would just have to send for the plumber.
Turn off, drain down, sit back, wait on your plumber.
I'll remember that, John.
Right, thanks very much.
I certainly need to have that information for the next job I'm going to do. As you can see, we have a dripping tap here. Drip, drip. And a dripping tap means a new washer. So I'm going to show you how to replace the washer. Before you start, you've got to have the correct size of washer. And I've got various ones here to show you. The red ones are synthetic or compressed paper, and the black ones are rubber, and either of them will do for hot or cold water taps. Now, there are 2 sizes. The smaller ones, which are for a sink, a wash hand basin, or a smaller size of tap, and the larger size are for bath taps. So today is going to be the tap on a sink, so it's one of the smaller ones. So I'm going to, first thing to do is to turn off the source of the water. Now, I'll turn on the tap, and you have to know where to turn off the water. We know that in our system here, the gauge to turn is underneath, and I turn it clockwise to close it. But as John pointed out, it may not be under the sink or anywhere in your house, and you may have to go out to the street to turn it off. But under the sink area is quite a normal place. I've turned it off fully, and of course the tap has stopped running. So I'm safe to proceed. The first thing to do is to remove the cap of the tap. Now, let me show you this older type first, because this is a fairly common sort which you may have. And if it's a washer on this sort of tap, you have to remove the cap. Now, it will either screw off, or in this instance, it pushes off. It's not necessary to take the whole top off, provided you can expose this brass nut, which you then will loosen with a spanner, remove, and then you get the washer. So that would how you would deal with that sort of one. Our sink here has a more modern sort of tap, and there are no screws in evidence at all. But if we prise off this little disc at the top, here we are, there is a screw inside, which we then have to undo in order to take off the head of the tap. So I will undo this screw. I must point out, although this is coming off quite easily, it is because I have already tried it, and it does come easily. But if you're doing it in an older tap, it may take quite a long time to loosen these screws. Another thing I would like to do is to put the plug in the sink, because if a screw or a little bit of the sink, or in this instance, a little blue disc comes loose, which indicates that it's cold water, if any of these things fall off into the sink, and you don't have in a plug or a basin, you're going to lose something down the drain, and then you'd have to send for Muriel to come and unblock your drain and get it out. So I've put the plug in, and now I simply can lift off the head of the tap. So these bits are all off, and this exposes the inner workings. There's a nut here, and this is where my adjustable spanner comes in useful. Absolutely necessary. Don't use a tool with a little serrated edge, because that would damage the nut. And as I say, it won't come off quite as easily if it's an older tap, or if it's one where the washer has not been replaced for quite a long time. When you take out this middle bit, you can see it's new, it's so nice and shiny. Inside is the damaged washer. So we have to remove it, and it's held in place by a small nut. Small nut is there. Then we have to take the washer off. Now that can sometimes be a bit tricky if it seems to be jammed against the metal. Watch your fingers, because if everything is wet and if the screwdriver slips, you can give yourself a nasty cut. Here we are. I think I'm damaging the washer even more, but that's unimportant. It's going to be thrown away. Here we come. Now, here we have the damaged washer, which has been taken from this part of the tap. So we can lay it aside and replace it with the good washer. I think you'll see the difference. Good washer. Into place. That one fits, and then the little nut goes back to hold it in place. And I'll tighten that. Okay. Replace it in the tap. And tighten it first by hand and then tighter with the spanner. That's it. Then replace the head, holding it in place with the screw. I need a bigger screwdriver here. Fine. And the screw is covered up with this, the blue disc for the cold water and this little cover. Right, so far so good. I'll turn the water off and then turn it on at the main. Turning it on is anti-clockwise, like so. Now, the moment of truth, put on the tap and see that we still have water running. Yes. And then put it off. No drip. We've been successful. We have, the new washer has cleared the problem. Fine.
Well, I must say that looked pretty straightforward. But another problem you're likely to come up against is an overflowing cistern. And this could be the cistern in the toilet or the one in the attic. I must say it doesn't overflow over the top, but through the overflow pipe, and you may have seen water running outside. And to realise why this happens, we're having a look inside a cistern which is fortunately dry. And you can see here the ball, which you've probably noticed inside the cistern if you've had the top off for any reason. And this floats up and down. It acts like a float, which means that as water flows in here, this rises up, bringing this arm with it, and it's the arm which controls the tap which shuts off the water. Is that right, John?
That's right. There's three things can go wrong, Muriel. A leaky ball, a bad washer, or a bad face on the stopcock, on the ball valve.
So if it's a leaky ball, you can have that replaced.
That's correct.
But if you want to turn off the water and stop this overflow, I suppose there's two things you can do. You can either turn off the
stopcock below.
The stopcock below, or this is an idea I've seen, to put a piece of wood across and to tie up the ball valve like that. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that will close off the water supply while you effect some kind of repair. If the ball cock is leaking, you'll have to replace it. But that will stop it in the meantime. Now, have you any other hints for us, John?
Yes, I have two. The dripping tap is one thing, but also you sometimes get some water coming down the spindle, and all you need to do is tighten this nut here. This is the nut which is under the chrome cover. Tighten that and it will stop this annoying drip. And when we were talking about choke drains, I did have one many years ago, and it was in a music shop, and you'll never guess what was choking this drain in the basement. Thousands and thousands of the old steel gramophone needles that used to play in the 78 gramophone records. A solid hedgehog of gramophone needles causing the choke.
Well, that's a good story. I think I'll have to tell that one to Anne. Now, if you'd like a leaflet with the details we've given you this week, explaining just what we've been doing, send us a large stamped addressed envelope at this address. Do It Herself, Plumbing, Grampian Television, Queen's Cross, Aberdeen. Remember to mark it plumbing so that we don't send you last week's information.
Well, that's it for today. So before we go off to start labeling taps, changing washers and so on, can I say thank you to John McGibbon for being with us and for all his help and his advice. More next week, so do join us again. Bye.
Bye.